Hi, welcome. When we talk about the gambits, most of times the persons say, oh, this is unsound, this is terrible, you're going to sack a bishop, you're going to sack a knight or a pawn, and you won't have enough compensation. But what if you play those openings on the internet and you win strong opponents? What if you win your friends, or even what if you have a higher rating and you destroy completely feed masters or international masters or even grandmasters? Would you have the courage of playing those gambits on classical official games? I like to know that on the comments, because I am the kind of person that, yes, I play the gambits on official games. What is the problem? The worst that can happen is you're going to lose the game, but you will enjoy a lot the resulting positions. So I want you to see this video with critical thinking. And if you have any questions, please tell me, talk with me, okay? So let's jump to the video. But before that, did you know that almost 87% of the viewers isn't subscribed? I don't know why don't you like me, because I work a lot just for you, because I want you to have the best content about chess. So my goal is to teach and to help you to improve your rating. I want you to reach the sky. I want you to be a master. I want you to reach all of your goals. And to do this, you just need to subscribe, push the notifications on, and if you have some suggestion, critiques, you can always put on the comments or talk with me by chess.com. My nickname is _attack. Of course, if you enjoy the content, push the like button, because this will help the channel on the algorithm and will help me produce more content every day just for you. So let's jump to our video. So before we start talking about the opening, we need to learn a little bit about John Cochrane. So probably you don't know who was John Cochrane, and this guy is kind of a legend. This guy was pretty good, and I confess that last week I almost didn't know this guy. And John Cochrane has lived on the 19th century, and he was pretty strong. So he was a lawyer, and he worked at military. On those days, he has written a book, and he was a passionate chess player. For example, we will talk about that here on the channel. He is the creator of the Cochrane defense. This isn't an opening, but is a way of drawing an endgame with rook against rook and bishop. So nowadays, in the modern chess, lots of great chess players need to study John Cochrane, because, for example, in the endgames, they need to apply the concepts that he has studied in the 19th century. So about his games, he is famous for his games against, for example, Howard Stoughton. You heard about Stoughton because of the chess pieces, but Stoughton was number one after John Cochrane. So looking at chess metrics, well, this is an estimative about his rating, and according to chess metrics, his highest rating was 2571. So if this guy at this level, and if he has been the number one of the world, of course, in 1843, this guy played a little bit, no? He was a grandmaster. He was pretty strong. Of course, the International Federation doesn't exist on those days, but he was pretty strong. And then, of course, he passed for number 4 because of work, because he has traveled to India, and of course, because of his profession, he doesn't play it full-time chess, but he continued playing against several players. So why we will study this opening? Because this opening has been invented by Cochrane. He was pretty strong. He has been number one of the world, and he is a romantic player. So it's always good to study romantic players, because I tell you, you will enjoy this opening. So let's jump to our theory. So about the opening, here we have, first, who should play this opening and why? Simple. This opening should be played by creative players and persons that, of course, like to attack, they like to play dynamic, they are very, very, very creative, and they want to play different stuff, different things, and they like to create problems to their opponents. Of course, this is for players that like to take risks, a lot of risks. In the end, I will tell you my opinion, what I think should be the kind of opponents you play this opening. Okay, so let's go. About the characteristics of the player, we've already talked about. Now, what is the opening? Well, it's quite simple. This is played against the Petrov. So the Petrov is played by black and consists in this knight f6. And before we jump to the Cochrane Gambit, of course, here we will continue with knight takes e5. And for lower rated players, most of times the black will take on e4. This is still playable, but this isn't playable at the highest levels. But for lower players, probably you will win if you're 500 or even 600 or 700, because the black players will commit a blunder after queen to e2. The correct way of playing that is with queen e7, because after queen e7 we will continue with queen takes, and okay, d6. White is slightly better because we have d4, pawn takes, but okay, it's playable for black, but we are conquering more space, more central space, so this is always interesting for white. But for lower players, they won't do that. They will play knight to f6. And after that, I want you to know this, because in the end, the point 5, we will do practical exercises, and I will ask you that. So we want to play knight to c6, and we will win this queen because of the fact that we are giving a discovered check. So the queen is attacking the king, and the thing is that this queen is being attacked by the knight, and it isn't possible to solve the problem, because if bishop plays, knight takes, easy stuff, and if queen plays, knight takes queen, and okay, we win. We have won a lot of material. So first thing, this isn't Cochrane yet, but it's important to know this concept, because for lower players, I want you to have this all. I want you to improve, even if you have 200 of rating, okay? So let's jump to the Cochrane. So we will see several variants, and after the black plays the Petrov, we will always play knight takes e5. And after d6, our gambit will consist in the sack of the knight on f7. So after knight takes f7, of course, here it's mandatory to take the knight. So we won't be seeing different things, because I'm assuming that black won't be giving up 5 points. Because if black gives 5 points, you will win this game. You just need to play with calm, to do correctly the exchanges, and you're going to win because you're winning. Important. If you have an advantage, a material advantage, you will want to exchange material, because less material will guarantee that you win the game. So after king takes knight, we will see the ideas for black with the bishop. We will see ideas with c5. And we will see ideas with bishop g4. In my opinion, are the most normal approaches for black. And here, we need to think, because this will help you. This isn't a gambit, but this will help you to improve your positional play. Because the first thing that everyone thinks is that bishop c4 is the most correct approach. But no, this is terrible. This is a blunder for white, because after bishop c4, black can control everything, and black will have a one position with d5. The idea is that after pawn takes, queen check is too complicated, because of course here we don't want to exchange material, because if queen takes, of course, king takes because of the pawn, and well, this will be complicated because it isn't possible to have this pawn for too long. So we will be losing material on this game. And talking about the king is exposed, is centralized, we cannot castle, so this isn't ideal. And if bishop goes to e2, okay, it's not pretty too, because exists queen to e4, attacking the pawn, attacking g2, and okay, I studied with castle kingside, and after exists bishop g4, it's complicated because this move isn't possible, because this exists is a check, and after that, for example, king to h1, this will continue with bishop f5, and black has initiative, and the pawn will fall. So we don't want to play bishop c4. So to play this Cochrane Gambit, you need to know that the continuation is always with knight c3. So after knight c3, let's go to our lines. Let's jump to bishop e6, because in my opinion, okay, we can see the sideline of king to g8 too, but most of times, for example, on the internet, they play c5. We will see this all. But in my opinion, bishop e6 makes a lot of sense, because black doesn't want to let the bishop go to c4, or else you're going to be attacked, and I think nobody likes to be attacked by no one or nothing. So here I will suggest you to continue with d4, controlling the center. And the thing is that you have sacrificed material, but if you analyze this position with the fish, yes, will give advantage for black, but 0.4, not more than that. So talking serious about this, okay, it isn't the best opening for white, but you're not losing because of that, because you don't have 2400 of rating. So I don't believe you're going to lose games because of that. In my opinion, you can play this with any problems, because the center is yours. And for example, if black continues normally with bishop e7, we can force the center with f4. f4 is already complicated because we are threatening to advance f5. For example, here probably rook to try to castle manually, and we will continue with f5. And the thing is that this is already too complicated for black. Here, my suggestion is bishop c4, but for example, even e5 is interesting. But in my opinion, this check damages all the game of black, because the king needs to go back to e8 and will be at the center until the rest of the game. And now we can castle, guaranteeing the protection of our king. And the thing is that we are always threatening to advance the pawns. For example, after knight c6, in my opinion, is normal to prevent this advancing. We will continue with bishop f4 to support the advance again. And after, for example, d5, probably paranoid answer. Here you don't need to be worried, because knight takes d5, and this move isn't possible because you have queen h5. It's too strong, because of course g6 is the only move, and this is already won. And this move isn't available because knight takes, of course. After bishop takes, pawn takes, or advances, this is terrible for black. So talking about d5 isn't possible. You don't need to be worried about this move. And if black plays something, what will black do? The thing is that the queen is closed, the rook is closed. All of the black's pieces are passive. And more important than that, look at the quote of Larry Evans. No one ever won a game by making random moves. So black is playing random because black doesn't have any plan, and for the simple fact that you know what you're doing and the black doesn't know, you have a lot of potential to win this game. So let's see. For example, a normal move could be knight to a5. I think for my level, probably this is a normal move. It isn't good, but it's normal. And here we will always work the center. We work always from the center because we are controlling the center, and we don't want the black to create counterplay. For example, c5. can be an idea, of course. And here we will continue with e5. Here exists the calculation. You need to push by your brains and think a lot to guarantee that you're going to win this game. So, for example, if d takes, we have advantage because we have already have taken a piece. And, for example, if he takes, we will take again. And the queen cannot take because of rook e1 winning material. So here, probably bishop takes. It's the most normal. And after that, we are completely won because the king is exposed. And again, g6 isn't possible. So rook probably will be played. And after that, knight d5 will create some problems. Of course, the d6 is a problem. Everything is a problem in this game. And the thing is that the knight doesn't let the queen to be activated. So, for example, after rook c8, I think probably would be an idea. We can give a check, and if the king plays here, we take h7 with a devastating attack. So this position is completely won for white. So let's go back. We have seen that this approach of the bishop isn't easy, but what if black doesn't play that? Black can play a different thing. For example, g6 to prevent the advancing of the f pawn. So yes, this can happen. And here we will think like a romantic player. Let's make Cochrane proud of us. So here I will suggest you to advance f5. Of course, this all have been analyzed by the Fish and Lila. So here, if pawn takes, we have given up another pawn, so we are losing by 2 pawns. But the thing is that this king is completely exposed, so we have a lot of compensation, a lot of potential to create damages for our opponents. So here, I will suggest you to do, for example, pawn take. Why not? Because after bishop takes, we are losing by 2 points, but the thing is that we have queen f3, guaranteeing that we have the initiative and we are creating problems. Here, I will assume that black plays bishop g4 or queen to d. For example, bishop g4 to try to maintain the initiative probably isn't, I don't know if it is the best approach, but probably it isn't, because we can take on b7, we are losing by 1 point, but the thing is that black's structure is completely broken, and I'm not sure that black has enough compensation, because, okay, probably the best approach will be to develop material, and after that, okay, we can continue this game playing h3, to maintain the initiative or try to win again the initiative. And the thing is that if you analyze this position with the fish will say that the only possible move to have some advantage for black is to play rook to b8. Because if you play a different stuff, for example, bishop f5, the game is already equal, because we will play queen to f3. So after this idea, in my opinion, this isn't easy to play, because we can play queen take a7, winning another pawn, and we can think about an endgame right now, because here we have a passed pawn, so, and the material is even, so why not to play this kind of stuff? I want you I want to know your opinion, because in my opinion, this is easier for white. This is very, very easy for white. So talking about bishop p6, I think it isn't possible to play different for black. So we have seen the approach of the pawn and bishop. Of course, I am assuming that knight to d7 isn't easy to play too for black, because here we can continue with d5. Well, this isn't the best move according to the engines, but I enjoy a lot because I like to play the semish. The semish is a different approach against when you play d4 against the King's Indian defense. And in my opinion, we will have a superior development after d5, f3, and look at our pawns. They are great. and they are very well placed. This bishop isn't. So here we can continue trying to think about, for example, castle queenside. And in my opinion, we have a lot of compensation, because here I will suggest you to play like a romantic again. Of course, g4 is beautiful, because after that g4, g5, and we are all creating problems. And after rook and h4, here it isn't easy to play this game for black, because I will suggest you to continue with f4. Of course, if you want to win, in my opinion, f4 is the idea. If you want to play solid, please don't do this gambit, because the solid players shouldn't do this kind of stuff. This is for dynamic players, for ambitious players, and players with curiosity, for players that enjoy to do different stuff. So I will suggest f4, and after that, the game is won for white, because it isn't easy to defend this. The truth is that the computers already say that this position is completely devastating for black. So about bishop e6, I think we've talked about a little bit of the possible variants that can happen. Let's jump to bishop g4. So here, as we have seen, the Cochrane Gambit consists in this sacrifice, and after king take, knight c3, very important, and now we will see bishop to g4. Again, in my opinion, the kind of structure that we play with the Samish is always aggressive, always interesting, and in my opinion, this will be always very complicated to survive for black. So let's start with f3, because we attack the bishop and black will need to defend. Of course, probably the best idea is just to play bishop e6, but let's start with bishop h5. And after that, okay, bishop check makes all sense. And after king plays to e8, probably is the best, because, for example, I'm not assuming that black will play that because of the fact that the bishop on f8 won't be playing soon. So after kings to e8, we will continue with d4. And the thing is that we have the center, we have the development, and we have the initiative. So, and we are losing by 1 point, of course, because of the fact that we have played the gambits and we are losing on material. We don't want to play simple stuff, passive stuff, because what will happen? We will lose the endgame. So we don't want to exchange material. We want to create problems to our opponent. So after that, I'm assuming that bishop e7 is probably the most common approach, and we will castle kingside. Because after that, well, we have everything we want. We have the initiative and we have the center. And here, probably c5 is an idea, but we can see knight d7 too. So we will advance, and here, in my opinion, we don't have any kind of problems, because after knight d7, we will continue advancing, because after pawn takes, here we can take, or we can play d6. d6 is intermezzo. So we will continue with the initiative, and after bishop to f8, of course, f take, and after knight takes, we have again a lot of potential, because we have queen d5 because of the fact that this knight is pinned. So after that, king to g6, it looks strange, it's weird, and yes, we can take the knight in this position. It's completely won for white. So we have always ideas. I haven't seen one variant that doesn't give problems for black. So let's see. What if black plays here knight to d7, for example? If this happens, we can continue advancing the pawns, because yes, it's this is very, very good for white, because, for example, pawn takes, we will win material. So, of course, let's assume that black doesn't do this kind of barbarity. And if knight goes to somewhere, for example, to e8, something like that, we can advance the pawn like you were Bobby Fischer. So, if you do this kind of opening, you will be you have the potential to win games like Bobby Fischer or Paul Morphy. Quick games, romantic games, and with violence. So, for example, after king takes pawn, the thing is that this is already won because of the fact queen to h5 has potential. Queen g4 isn't so good because here the king will go to f7, but we can play queen to h. Why? Because after this advance, we have f5. It's too strong because pawn takes, this is checkmate. So it's too strong. And if this king goes here, for example, this can't be good because f takes, and after this, well, let's smile because we will be giving checkmate right now. Have you seen? Queen d5 is checkmate. So brilliant stuff, beautiful material. So let's go back. And we have seen here that this kind of stuff is complicated. Of course, black has played badly. Here, for example, after castle, I think the correct approach is to play c6, but tell me one thing. Do you think that your opponents will be playing c6 here? Serious? Do you believe that they will play this kind of stuff on this position? I don't believe it. If somebody plays c6 against you, he will be cheating. I'm telling you, because this for me isn't natural. Natural is to see those kind of things, to try to develop material, try g6, this kind of stuff, or even bishop to f7 that we have seen before. So here we can continue, for example, after knight to d7, we can continue this with any problems. For example, queen e2, it's an idea, bishop b3, prophylactic ways, queen e1, trying to attack and create problems. I think bishop e3 also is an idea. So, and you won't be having problems because of the fact that this bishop is preventing the castle king side. So this will be too complicated to play for black. So let's see the c6 idea. If black plays c6, I will suggest bishop e3, of course. And the idea is if black plays d5, here you won't be taking, or else you will have problems with this game. But I will suggest you just to play bishop e2. What is idea? It's quite simple. If pawn takes, pawn takes. And if bishop takes, of course, we will be better because we are more developed. And the light square bishop of black was the better bishop. So here, black doesn't want to exchange a bishop. This one is the worst one. This is the good one. So after that, probably bishop g6 to try to create problems to this pawn is probably the approach. And I will suggest you to continue with bishop f3. And again, probably you're thinking about, this is complicated, but tell me one thing. If it was possible to castle, yes, this would be a very complicated position. But think a different way. This king has already moved. And this means that this rook won't be entering on this game soon. So black needs to solve this problem. And black needs to solve this problem. And talking about problems, this knight hasn't played. And we already have developed everything. So very important. Talking about the center, we have two centered pawns. So we are occupying two central squares. And our opponent doesn't have nothing. So we have several positional advantages. So for this fact, I think black will suffer always, 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 always. So for example, after knight plays to d7, yeah, we can play e5 because this move isn't possible because we are controlling with two pieces. So, and what can he do? If knight goes back, I think it's a normal move if you're playing, for example, on the internet. Here, in my opinion, we already have advantage because this pawn is a passed pawn. So we want to put the queen on e2 to guarantee that the pawn can continue advancing later on this game. So in my opinion, this is superior again for white. So let's go back. So we've already seen the ideas with bishop e6 and bishop g4. Now we will jump to our last variant, and the last one is has been recommended by several players on the 19th century and even 20th century, is the idea of playing c5. And yes, this is a very romantic way of answering Gambit, because, of course, when we look to this position, we see a terrible central pawn, the d6 pawn. So for this reason, in my opinion, we will continue with bishop c4. Of course, this is always the idea. And if bishop plays to e6, this probably isn't best, because bishop takes, king takes, and we can continue with d4. Of course, this is, in my opinion, necessary, because if black doesn't play, we can play, and we will create some problems to the king. And if pawn takes, this will be an interesting game for white too, because the king is on the center, and we have queen c4 check. Of course, this isn't good. f4 is checkmate. And if the king goes, for example, here, to prevent checks later, we can continue with bishop f4, and we will create pressure on this pawn castling queenside. So we don't forget, we are losing just by 1 point. It's true, we gave up a piece for 2 pawns, but the thing is that you weren't playing an endgame. You don't want to reach the endgame. You're entering a middle game, and you're playing for the middle game. That's like the romantic players played. They played for the middle game. So if you play this correctly, the computers say it isn't possible to lose. You have a little disadvantage of 0.4, not more than that. It isn't terrible. So let's continue. Another approach can be just to advance d5, but in my opinion, this doesn't make any sense, because knight takes bishop, and then we can continue with queen to e2. The idea is that after this exchange, we will create a lot of damages, because the bishop is pinned on d5. So this isn't good, because we will win this game after this check, because the king will go here, and we take with the queen, and we win material. So this will be one for us. So this doesn't make any sense. Another approach can be, okay, after d5, we take with the knight, bishop e6. Here, of course, let's assume that he don't take, and he makes a different move. For example, bishop to d6 probably is interesting too. After bishop d6, we can play dynamic, but first, let's develop our material. So we want to develop with d4. And think a little bit. We are sacking one pawn, but the thing is that the material right now is even. So after, for example, pawn takes, we have potential to develop a new piece, bishop on c1. That's the goal. The main objective of doing this move. So in my opinion, probably the easiest way of trying to create problems for black is first to play knight to f4, because we are threatening to take the bishop. And here, if bishop takes, in my opinion, is the only way of playing this for black, we will take with the queen. And the thing is that this square is ours. So black is not controlling this square. For example, a terrible move would be king to f, because this loses material, loses the queen. And if king plays, for example, here, yes, this is interesting too, but not because of this move, but yes, because of e5. This is a fork, because the pawn is threatening to take the bishop, and probably you're thinking about the fact that, oh, but the pawn isn't protected. Yes, that's not a problem. the queen can give check, and we will be very well. Because the king cannot go here to try to win the queen. So this is the only move. And now, yes, we take, and this position is superior for white, because white is winning by 1 point. So this is always interesting. So I'm defending this opening because the thing is that we have a lot of tricks in this game. Important, we have seen bishop taking this piece, but what if bishop takes knight? Well, first we can take on e6 because the king is on the center and exists queens on the chessboard. Then we will take the other bishop, and again, for the black pieces, they will be very preoccupied because of the fact that the king is on e6 with a white king on the board. So it's important to try to create counterplay. For example, queen to a5, and yes, we can play bishop to d2, but what if c3? The idea is quite simple. If pawn takes, we need to create problems. So queen to c4, we are protecting the pawn and threatening to take the pawn back. And after king to e7, here we will castle. Always thinking about the attack. So after pawn takes, we will play king to b1, because the safest way to defend our king is putting behind an opponent's pawn. So right now we need to think about how can black defend this position. Let's see, if rook plays to d8, we can play bishop c7, and we are threatening to win something. So this is the only move, and after rook takes, it's not easy to solve this problem, because here, for me, white is already better, because after queen to a6, well, let's win this game with bishop d6. And after that, it's not easy to decide, because if king goes here, we will play queen to c8. So probably, so just to show this kind of stuff, even this is interesting, because look, this is a checkmate. It's over. So probably here, the only way of playing that is sacking the queen. And after rook takes, king takes, well, it's not clear if I will be able to win this game, but I think this is always easier because, okay, I will give more material because it's always good. And after that, I can take on b7 and I can try to win the rook. So probably this is one for whites. But of course, these are always complicated positions. So talking about c5, as you're seeing, it's not easy to play for black too. So we need to see a sideline, and we are finishing because of the time of the video. But here we have seen this way, we have seen this kind of way. It's not easy. Even king to e8. I don't know who will play king to e8. It's not normal too. But even this, we can castle. And what is the problem of this game for white? We will attack with everything we have. For example, knight to c6, yes, normal. d3, why not? It's normal because the king is on e8. Bishop e7, but it doesn't have the castle king side available, so we don't need to worry about. And okay, bishop e3, and what will he do? For example, bishop here, it's normal. I don't know, because it's not easy to play this position. For example, f3, I like a lot f3, for example. And if bishop goes to h5, g4, why not? Bishop here again, probably his idea. An approach and g5, just to play pretty. If bishop takes bishop, yes, g takes. And we are playing for the win again, because probably bishop will take, d will take, and we are winning by 1 point. This is superior for white. Just to show you that we don't have any problem. Just to finish, I want to show you a sideline, assuming that your opponent is probably a computer. So let's continue. Don't forget, this is playable just against the Petrov with the lines of d6, and we sack the knight on f7. So we will sack, and after knight, let's assume, of course, this move is terrible because you're going to give checkmate, of course, because bishop c4 and this is finished. I think no one will play that, but we never know. So let's assume that after, for example, here c6, we play d4. Of course, here bishop is not good because of that. And now let's assume that you're playing probably against a computer. And if you play against a computer, he will play the king to g8. You don't need to be worried again, because you will continue with, for example, bishop e2 to guarantee the protection of the king, your king. For example, bishop e6, in my opinion, is completely playable, is an idea. And after that, in my opinion, you're losing by material. So you will need always, when you see those kind of positions with bishop e6, you want to play f4, d4, and continue advancing the pawns with castle king side, okay? So after knight to d7, we can continue with the ideas of e5. This is always very interesting for white. After that, of course, knight d5, in my opinion, is the idea, and we will castle. Of course, if you want, you can take, but in my opinion, isn't the best approach. For example, knight takes, pawn takes, and look at this pawn. This pawn is very good, because we can advance always the pawn. So bishop to f7, and now we can continue with bishop. For example, bishop d3 is an idea, queen to e1 to try to push the queen to the king side, even rook. But in my opinion, we have lots of potential. This one is an idea, for example, because you're developing what is the problem and how will black solve all of the problems. I don't know, probably with queen a5. To try to create some problems, anything. And the thing is that you don't need to defend. This is a romantic opening. Let's make Cochrane proud. So let's play bishop d3. And the idea is quite simple. If queen takes c3, we will continue with queen g4. And what is the idea? The idea is that now the queen is outside the game. And this king is alone. Black has two bishops, but what are they doing? And we are threatening to take the knight, and we are threatening to give a fork. So, for example, after knight to b6 to try to push to d5, in my opinion, e6 is already complicated, because after bishop e8, f5, f4, f6, sorry, and this isn't easy for black. For example, this kind of stuff, this all can be played. Of course, the queen cannot take d4 because of the fact we are protecting with the queen. This would continue with h5, and okay, we've already have more than 40 minutes of video, so I will finish this variant with queen h4 and defending that. Talking about practical games, probably this will be always easier for white. Just to give you an example, Topalov has played this opening in an official game about a top player, and the result wasn't a loss. He has drawn the game. So if you want me to put this video here on the channel, please tell me something on the comments, okay? So let's jump to our last part of this video, because, well, the video is already too long, and if you want me to do another video about the Cochrane or a specific line, please tell me that, because I can put this video after the video we have done today. So let's do 3 practical exercises. They are quite easy, and the idea is to push by everyone and every kind of players, from 200 player until 1800, for example. So let's go. First exercise. Well, the first exercise is quite simple. all. It's just to see if you have been looking to all the variants and you haven't forgotten the easiest approaches. So let's go. So our first variant is one of the easiest. So we start with e4, e5, knight, knight, and here we have taken and black has taken. So quite simple. What is the best continuation for white? This isn't the Cochrane Gambit, but is important because lower rated players will catch a lot of persons with this trick. So the continuation is queen e2, and if black plays badly, we will win the queen with this move. Okay, important, the knight is on c6 and not on g6, because g6 bishop goes here and we won't be winning the queen, and knight here we will win the queen. So the first exercise is done. Let's go to the second. The second is after this move we can enter our Cochrane Gambit. So how can we play the Gambit? What is the correct continuation? Of course, the normal approach is to go knight f3 and this kind of stuff, but we don't play normal. So we will sacrifice the knight. And after that, king plays, and we have seen all the variants today. Finally, third exercise and last one. So here, this has continued with our Cochrane Gambit, and after knight to c3, black has played this move. What is the best continuation after d4 and knight to d7? This is for the highest level players. So what would you play? Well, here, in my opinion, the correct approach is to play a similar structure of the Samish opening. So we will continue with d5, and after bishop plays to g4, we will play f3, creating a lot of difficulties and problems for black. So with that, we finished another theoretical video. Today we have talked about another opening, another gambit, and this one, it isn't very well known, and like Damiano's defense is an opening that most players don't take seriously, and they think this is terrible, it isn't playable, and white will lose. But the thing is that if this was so bad, why would Topalov play it on an official game? I don't know, but if you have some opinion, please tell me something on the comments or talk with me by chess.com. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and don't forget, if you aren't subscribed, please make me this favor, because my goal is to help you to improve. So every day we create a new video. Don't forget, tomorrow at the same hour, we will be here to talk a little bit more about chess. Have a good night until tomorrow. Bye-bye.